People underestimate what they can do physically and overestimate what they can do mentally.
Most success comes down to your tolerance for pain. I actually know I'm also going to be wrong for the next 4, 5, 6 years. If you're constantly striking a rock with a hammer, you didn't do something right with the 100th blow when it opens. It's the 99 strikes before that.
To be able to sit in that place of pain and discomfort long enough.
All victories are theirs and all faults are mine.
Extreme ownership.
Thought I was above that. Probably missed out on a few $100,000 worth of deals. Boring and it sucks and there's nothing interesting about it until, to your point, that one moment where you're able to catch it and it looks and feels like magic.
It may offend some people, but the truth is meant to be offensive.
I would probably prioritize the physical health first. Moving, lifting weights, that makes mental health a lot easier.
Physically, that's one thing you can't control. That's a win. Right?
I'm just too tired to be stressed about this.
You start your day with a win. Let the day happen to you.
It turns the tide of battle.
When your window of opportunity opens, will you be ready?
All right, Mike, welcome to the Catch Window podcast. If you don't mind, first just letting our guests and our viewers know just a little bit more about who you are, kind of what you do, your backstory.
Yeah, sure. My name's Mike Killen. I run a company called Sell Your Service. What we actually do is we help agency owners specifically transition to like a more stable recurring revenue type business. I was lucky enough to run an agency for a while and sell it. And now I get to kind of spend most of my time creating YouTube videos, which is kind of fun. And in my spare time, I live on the coast here in England. So we do a lot of swimming all year round, walking the dog, cooking, anything to kind of, I'm trying to really focus on what are the things I enjoy doing and the business should enable those, as opposed to, I've certainly had that hustle phase where we're in it 24 hours a day. And maybe we'll come back to that. But at the moment, you can probably see at the moment with my hair, like it's all shaggy, I'm just coming out of my like winter arc, so to speak. So maybe I'll tidy myself up for the spring and summer. But yeah, that's kind of what we're doing at the moment.
Great. Awesome. Well, I appreciate you sharing that just to give, viewers a little bit more perspective about you and what you do. And for those who don't know, like why this is called a Catch Window podcast, there's a little bit of an overlap. My background being a former Division I college athlete, football is what I did, and as a receiver or a running back, right, you have a certain window of time when you can make a play on the ball. And it's very similar in business, in terms of a window of opportunity where you can make huge strides and grow your business and scale what you're doing. And oftentimes, just like in football, people miss that from a lack of preparation, whether it be you're not mentally, financially fit enough, to seize this moment, or whether you're not willing to put forth the capital, all right, or maybe you're just out of position. So this podcast is all about when I do get that window of opportunity, when I do have that catch window, how do I seize it? And how do I make the most of it? So we have Mike here to kind of help us out and give us some insight with that. So I guess, Mike, first question, right? We'll start it off just super simple. When you have an opportunity on the table, business opportunity, I guess, how do you seize that? Like, what does that look like when that opportunity kind of shows up?
It's a good question, man. I've been thinking about this a lot because, like, I've been watching some of your stuff, and like in the UK, so I'm actually half Maori, so the native people in New Zealand. So I've got a New Zealand like citizenship, and rugby's like a big sport for a bunch of those countries. And we have the winger would be kind of the equivalent, right? Their kind of job is to make sure that they catch the ball at the end of the line and then they just sprint as hard as possible to get it over the line. And my wife is a huge rugby fan, and she said the difference that it makes a really great winger is they know where to be. It's not actually their ability to catch. That's important, but you would hope that the throw is as much as that. I think a big part of it is when opportunities come your way, I often feel that most people basically aren't willing to grasp a hold of it. And this guy, it kind of sounds generic. I've been really trying to think about this because it's a really good question when you kind of raised it to me, was like, what's the difference between someone who seems to seize it and someone who doesn't? And maybe, again, part of your analogy, sometimes when you seize that catch, you're going to get hit and it's going to hurt immediately. And I think sometimes that's part of it. I think sometimes when you see something come your way and you have to go, I know that this is going to suck, maybe almost immediately, maybe for a while, but be willing to put up with that. That's a big, big part of it. And I'm always, and it's got to the point now where on the other side, where now I'm at the opportunity where I actually turn down more opportunities than I take on. I consider myself very privileged and lucky to be in that position. I like doing podcasts and stuff like this, but I probably turn down, for every one that I do, I maybe turn down 10, because we just don't need to do them. So, but at the time when you're hungry, it's making sure that you are willing to be like, yeah, this is probably going to suck almost immediately, and then I'm just going to have to grind through it for a little while. So yeah, does that make sense? Is that an okay start? I've been trying to think about this.
No, that's, I mean, I love it. You take it even a step further with that, because that's even the other side of it, right? You know, we focus on all about seizing opportunity, but understanding even after you kind of see the opportunity, there's some pain that kind of comes with that after, and you got to be willing to sit in that. And it's actually a perfect segue into the next thing I was going to kind of ask you, that I feel like is something a lot of people struggle with. How do you stay composed, you know, in these situations and in these times, right, where you're going towards something, you're seizing this opportunity, you know, the hardships are there, you have obstacles, you have some opposition, things you're facing. I guess, how do you stay composed during that phase?
Yeah, man. I mean, like, I was talking to my mum about this recently, because she's like, there's a couple of people in our family who have run businesses, but I'm the only one who's been doing it now. Where are we? So 14 years, right? I haven't had a job in that time. This has just been running this business. And it kind of boils down to, like, first of all, I genuinely believe that most success comes down to your tolerance for pain. Are you willing to endure pain? That's I mean, like, you'll know this from a physical standpoint. And I see this a lot with athletes. My wife is lucky enough to work with a lot of athletes. Talent is fine, but it's their ability to endure more pain in the moment than the next person. Like, that is, and I think a lot of athletes would kind of agree with that that's a big part of it. But also the element of composure is really interesting, because when you start freaking out and things start spiraling, running a business, I can only kind of speak to that, is basically betting on yourself and standing in front of a group of people, thousands, millions of people, and saying, you're all wrong, I'm right. That's the test of composure, because you're going to have so many people tell you that you're doing it wrong, you're doing it badly. And almost as well, like, that kind of temptation of like, well, try this method instead. That's almost just as bad, because it's very tempting to kind of stray the path. But you have to kind of bet on yourself and say, you're all wrong, I'm right. I actually know I'm also going to be wrong for the next 4, 5, 6 years, and you're all going to be proven right for the next 4, 5, 6 years. But at some point, there'll be an inflection where I have potentially endured enough pain where it turns out I was right all along. It's this ability to know that that is what you're saying, and that's not unusual, and it's going to feel like you're wrong most of the time. It's going to feel like my job is being proved wrong every single day. That is my job. My team's job is to say, hey, Mike, we're doing this badly. We could do this better. We're doing this wrong. So to me, composure is kind of about accepting, yeah, I'm going to be wrong for most of it. And it's going to seem strange for most of it. And it's going to seem everyone else is right. But you kind of hope that after a while, if you've endured enough pain, it'll work out. And then you're seen as right. And then what's really interesting is it flips, and all of a sudden everyone wants to have a conversation with you and say, so how did you do it? And it's, people kind of wish there was like this magic, like, oh, I discovered this magic key. It's basically because I was willing to be wrong and in pain for 5, 6, 7 years, and then it worked out. And some people do it faster than that, you know, maybe people who are smarter than me, but that was roughly the time frame it took us. Yeah. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. That's that's golden. That is literally golden, man. It's so much parallel. I mean, this is why I love these conversations. So much parallel, like you said, to just being an athlete. I mean, that, and a lot of your training and preparation is just the same thing, right? I mean, like, it sucks. Like, it sucks, you know, in the off season where you're putting in work and you're having 2 days where you're training and you're doing all this work, right? And you're not seeing the fruits of that work, right? Until it's game day. a lot of
Yeah.
the times, right? And that's when it shows up, that work and that preparation. That's when it shows up. And to your point, people are like, oh, how did you make that catch? How can you do this and that? Like it's just magic. And it's like there's a lot of work and pain that went into this that you don't see. So no, I think it's so true.
It's like another really interesting kind of analogy is because as I do more YouTube videos, I look more, and I'm not a YouTuber. Like I don't have a film crew or anything like that. We just film using a couple of different cameras and my team edit it. But you then look at like how Hollywood and how TV shows produce stuff, and they go, "Oh my God, this like 20-minute episode." I'm like, that took years to make, yet alone the decades of experience it takes, all the producers and the financiers and the camera workers and the focus pullers. Like, there'll be one person's job just to change the camera ring on a focus as you pull in. You'll never see that. You just see the really great looking shot. We are, as human beings, particularly with things like the internet and social media, we are exposed to 0.1% of the result. We simply do not see the work that goes on. I listened to a podcast recently, and you'll have to forgive me. There's a position in American football. Is it called like the long snap or something? Whose the job is
Oh,
to just
yes.
hold the
Yeah.
ball.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
like they were interviewing these guys, and they were like, you have to fall in love with the monotony of it, because that is all I do for 8 hours a day. I do that, then I go and learn a load of essentially like maths to like all the plays and stuff. And then the next day I'm just doing that. So when we see an athlete perform and they go, oh my God, it looks effortless. Like, you know, they just must be really good at it. No. It's because they've done that for 15 years, 8 hours a day, every day. And it's boring and it sucks. And there's nothing interesting about it until, to your point, that one moment where you're able to catch it and it looks and feels like magic, but actually it's the culmination of decades of work, of decades of knowing all the pain I've endured, all of the times when people have been like, is this worth it? All the times when I've been like, is this worth it? It pays off. And that's, I mean, some people call it an inflection point where, you know, it turns the tide of battle. The analogy I constantly remind my team about is like, if you're constantly striking a rock with a hammer, you didn't do something right with the 100th blow when it opens. It's the 99 strikes before that, right? It's not something magic about the 100th blow. It was the 99 before that made the difference. And
Wow.
to me, opportunity is that. Opportunity is like the 99 strikes up to the 100th. And being willing to do the 100th one as well, knowing full well that it might take another 100, but that's the point. That's the game, right? Does that make sense? Do you see what I mean? Yeah.
Gosh, man, you're coming out swinging with the goal. Jeez.
I've been boning up on my like massively. Like, what are the things I believe in? What are the things I remember?
Wow, man, wealth of knowledge. That's what we want. No, that's amazing, man. I love, and I can relate to this as an athlete. I could see the work that you've done. It wasn't just working for you, but it was working on you in a way. And you can see that kind of show up in how you think and how you process. And you have a team now. You have people who obviously look up to you, who rely on you, who you have to kind of lead. I guess, how does that translate into those meetings? You know, whether it's business meetings or there's team meetings, I guess, how does that mentality translate?
I mean, it's a good question. And like, I never saw myself as a manager. I never particularly wanted to lead a team of people. I know it's a big roadblock for a lot of business owners. They're like, I don't want to hire, and I understand it. It's a lot of stress. It is a lot of stress. The kind of, I mean, there's a bunch of stuff that we don't interview people when we're hiring, because I think some people interview really well but perform really badly, and similarly, some people interview really badly but perform really well. They're two different skill sets. Like, I don't ask for a CV because, okay, if you can put a CV together, great. We tend to do a paid 3-month trial. And we're like, if you say you can do the work, great. We can always train you. We must have mountains of documentation on training on how to do everything inside the business. But what I really want is someone who's, you know, willing to learn, open to learning, happy to kind of change and be honest with me as well. I will say that the kind of golden rule I've learned for management is, and the reason it kind of goes back, the reason I never wanted to manage people is because I hated being managed. I worked in corporate offices. I don't know in your your journey, if you've transitioned from athlete into this, I don't know, maybe you've probably presumably worked in some kind of corporate environment at some point. I hated the middle management layer. I didn't get on with them. I thought they were really difficult. It's why I was fired from 2 different marketing jobs, because I just didn't mesh with that. So when I hired people, I was like, is this how I'm going to run it? But what I learned, that the golden rule is be really, really appreciative of what they've done. You are a team. You have to share the goal. Anytime I've noticed there's friction in the company, not as culture, like personality wise, I think we all get on, but anytime I'm like, something's not right, it's usually because I haven't shared like the vision or the goal of where I want to get to. That's often been like a huge point. And then secondly, all victories are theirs and all faults are mine. So anytime anything goes well, anytime anything is successful, it's their work and they are to be celebrated and it's their job. Anytime anything goes wrong is 100% my fault, and it has to always land on me. So I'm hoping that that's the golden rule that I've learned that brings a team together when you're working on stuff like that. It's all, the work itself is almost irrelevant. Yeah, I mean, that's how I would certainly feel if I was in a team, maybe.
Mhm. Damn, that's good. That's good. Wow. What a I read about this once. It was this it's this guy who was like military Navy SEAL. I forget what it's called. It's like extreme ownership, and I feel
Yeah,
like
yeah, Jocko Willink.
yes, yes,
Yeah,
yes. Literally, man. Like, and
yeah.
I can see that reflecting like in the way you're running what you do in your business. And I mean, obviously, from a employee standpoint, I mean, you want to run through a wall for someone like that who, I mean, all the fault. It starts with them. They bring it back to them. And I think that's just such a strong mentality for honestly for life in general, like extreme ownership over your own life, over your own
Yep.
failures, successes, right? But I guess in the business world, um, could you think of a time where that wasn't your mentality? And do you feel like you've ever maybe lost a deal or lost out on an opportunity because of that?
So try rephrasing that so I can help understand. Like, are you saying, has there been a time when perhaps I wasn't entirely taking ownership of something, and because of that we failed, or something didn't go right within the business?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I guess a time before that was your mentality that you have now, and I think that mentality is the key to success. And I guess my question would be: is there a time where that wasn't your mentality and you missed out on an opportunity or a deal because you weren't thinking the way that you're thinking now?
That's a really interesting question. So, I mean, I could list 1,000 things, 1,000 mistakes. Like, a really good question some friends and I have is like, what's the latest mistake you've made? Because I think it's a good icebreaker. It's a good way to have a conversation. The truth is, in terms of the extreme levels of ownership, I don't know whether it's a personality thing. I don't know whether it's an upbringing thing. If anything, it's always been to the extreme, and I've had to kind of rein it in a little bit. I have always put enormous pressure on myself that, like, if I'm working with 8 people and the project fails, it's my fault. Now, you have to balance that because it ends up becoming self-destructive. So I think, if anything, I've learned to be like, actually, you should celebrate. And maybe if I don't want to celebrate my own wins, I can at least celebrate my team's winnings. I can certainly see, maybe this is going to sound massively arrogant. I would like to point out, I could tell you 1,000 things that are going wrong with the business today and 1,000 mistakes that I've made. There's loads of mistakes I made, but ownership of mistakes, I will gladly say that is something that I've always been pretty certain is my fault. I don't know that there's ever been a time where I've deliberately lost out on stuff. I can certainly say there's been times when clients I've worked with have failed to see, like, I mean, that's an interesting question though, man. Now that I'm thinking about it, like, there was a time when we were really struggling to sell this high ticket program, and I was kind of putting it down to, actually, maybe you're right, like leads and sales. And I was like, it's the ads, it's the content, it's the copy. And the cold hard reality is because I wasn't picking up the phone enough. I kind of thought I was above that. So there's probably an element of that within it where I was like, it's not that I wasn't taking ownership, as I wasn't doing the thing that I should have been. I was avoiding something. I don't mind selling on the phone. It's just I kind of thought I was above that. So there's certainly an element of that. That's interesting now that you've made me think about that. So yeah, I think we've probably missed out on a few $100,000 worth of deals, certainly from me not being like, well, you have to close it. Like, we had sales teams, but I'm like, if they're not selling, then that's actually your fault. You have to close it. Until you can close, no one else is going to bother doing it. Yeah, so from a very pragmatic standpoint, certainly picking up the phone and having a conversation with clients like that the buck always ends there. And I've tried to avoid that a couple of times, wrongly so. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I think that's such a good point. You know, tying that into just, I think preparation, mentality. Like, I like that wording that you used of like thinking I was above this.
Mm.
And I think when you fix that and right, and the success obviously came, like there's a little bit of just like awareness. And I think that's the greatest thing humility does. Even to the when I look back at the point of like the catch window, the window of opportunity is I think humility brings awareness to stuff where things can be better.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
when it's
yeah.
not there, it's hard to see where you're kind of missing and where things are going wrong. I think that's such a powerful thing of like I thought I was above this and I realized like no, like this is kind of what I need to be doing to get over that hump, to get to that next level, which I think is really cool in terms of, obviously client acquisition. And I guess on that point, did you feel like there was ever like I guess another epiphany you had similar to this when it came to client retention or retaining clients? Like, I guess like what would that look like?
Yeah, I mean, that's a good, like, there was a point where I think we'd hit something like 10,000 people on our email list. And I remember thinking, cool, this is great. Let's get some more leads. And I remember kind of explaining this to some friends of mine. I was like, here's the plan to grow more leads. And every single one of them was like, but why aren't you like calling them up and trying to book sales? And it's because I'd become so focused on lead acquisition that I was like, actually, you don't need to worry about leads anymore. The reality is you don't need to worry about leads. If you're not, as in you, as in us, me, Mike Killen, like, you need to go and have more conversations with the people on your list. So I think a lot of the time we get really focused on genuine vanity metrics to the point where revenue is a vanity metric. Like, profit really is the only thing that matters. In terms of client retention, this is kind of to bring it back to your point, was we realized, okay, so in fact, I'll tell you, and maybe this will be a bit controversial. So we were running a very successful coaching and course company. We were doing, easily mid 6 figures. We were on our way to 7 figures. I had a bit of a breakdown and I was like, I'm sick of this. I hate it. I don't enjoy it. It was a crazy amount of work. It was a crazy amount of effort. And a friend of mine actually was like, tell me about this software that you sell as an affiliate. And I was like, it's basically a 95% profit margin. The only thing I need to work on is closing the sales and then making sure that they use the software. That's it. That's the only thing I need to do. And he was like, why on earth are you worrying about landing new customers? Surely making sure that someone continually pays $500, $1,000, $2,000 a month is where the money is. And I was almost like, yeah, but that feels like it wouldn't be much of a struggle. And so if it's not much of a struggle, is that good? Like, I was always kind of in the mindset of like, you're supposed to like hustle and grind and like go for it and, be in the pain cave and stuff. But when something feels like a bit like a cheat code, and to me, client retention is the cheat code to running a business. If you started a business and you said, well, I'm going to tell you that 5, 6, 7, 8, 100 people are going to come back and they're just going to give you $10, $20, $100, $50, whatever, every month, surely you would just spend all your time having a conversation with those 50 people. But for whatever reason, I was so involved in like, no, it's lead acquisition, no, it's new sales, no, it's client closing, no, it's pricing, that I completely forgotten to be like, why not just focus on the people who are constantly paying you every month? And so we totally changed our business model basically overnight. I was like, all we're going to do is focus on these guys who are paying us a monthly subscription fee. That's all we're going to do. And it's as simple as we don't have like a coaching group. We don't have a Go Collab group or anything like that. It's a few emails here and there. If they have a problem, they'll send me an email and I'll be like, hey, I'll just do you a Loom video. Like, that's the support I can offer. And the more I've done this, the more I've learned that just being there, willing to listen to a client, listen to their problems, not even necessarily offering them a solution, just them knowing that you're on their side. Like, that's genuinely the difference between like an average six-figure business and a six-figure business that like scales, is when you really, really care about the people who are constantly giving you money. And it doesn't have to be complex. Like I said, we don't have like private membership areas or private membership groups. We certainly used to, but now I've just like, no, you've got my email, you've got my WhatsApp, like just send me a message, and we can have a conversation about it and fix it. Yeah. Does that kind of maybe show like how we've kind of approached that from now on?
Yeah, yeah, I mean, like, completely change I mean, just like you said, the trajectory of honestly, business, and to your point, I really do believe that's a cheat code. I think it's an extreme cheat code, and,
What was
you
it
know, I
that made you realize that? Why do you say that?
Yeah, I mean, to your point, like, and I can relate to this, like that hustle, everything has to be a hustle and
Yeah.
grind. And it's like there's some
Yeah.
aspects of success that can be simple, like in right in front of you, and I think of like what you're
Yes.
saying of like, man, like makes sense, right? These people are already agreed, to like, hey, I trust you enough to like let's work together, keep building that trust, keep building that relationship, and then they never leave. But to your point, like it's just that's like, oh, that's simple, like versus the hustle and grind of finding the right people and going out there and messaging. No, it's such an epiphany, and I feel like the biggest movers, like I think of business, or even think of just like performance, whether it's in sports or just overall improving your health. My background's more of the
Yep.
fitness when it comes to like business is like it's oftentimes some of the most simplest things that make the biggest changes in how you feel, how you perform. And it's
Yeah.
very similar to what you're saying, in terms of business. Very
Like
similar.
recently, so again, I don't know if this came up in your like research or anything. So in 2021, I had cancer and I had chemotherapy at the end of 2021. And I don't know if you've got an experience with cancer and the levels of treatment and stuff, but chemotherapy destroys your immune system. So
Mhm.
I get really sick really quickly and really easily. So this winter has kind of been off. In fact, yesterday was my first proper session back at the gym, like an actual proper workout for about 2 or 3 months. And I'd started feeling like garbage up to that point because I'm not exercising, not moving and stuff, and your self-esteem kind of takes a bit of a hit. But my wife was like, when was the last time you drank a glass of water? It's like, I don't know. I mean, I drink. She's like, no, just water. I'm like, yeah, okay. She's like, I see how much sugar you're eating. Maybe try cutting some of the sugar out. And you're absolutely right. Some of the times it's so simple, the changes that we want to make to go towards and just start feeling at least on a level playing field, that sometimes you need to have someone kind of point it out to you and remind you. And to me, I don't know, maybe it's a weird thing, but like lead acquisition and making sales is always like a comfort zone to me because I was always like, well, I could do it. But in actual fact, like I say, focusing on profit, you will very rarely find a YouTube video that goes mega viral talking about profit. It's almost always about revenue because revenue's sexy, it's really big numbers, but the real thing to be focusing on, is your profit. That's all that matters. Profit is literally the only thing that matters. A business that isn't profitable isn't a business, it's a hobby. And so a lot of the time we get focused on the wrong things like leads and clients and new sales and number of products and launches and followers. And the cold hard reality is profit is what matters. And the key to profit is by consistently working with your customers. Like you can have a six-figure business, a very comfortable six-figure business with 5 customers paying you $2,000 a month. You have 5 customers paying you $2,000 a month, get on a group call with them once a week, have one call individually, like once a week. You can solve those kinds of problems. And there you go. There's $10,000 a month off the bat, and you're not really having to do that much work. So yeah, I think a lot of the time we like the idea of like busy and visible and famous. It is good and is successful. But the reality is, if you had a business that was paying you 10 grand profit and you had a super profitable business model, like that'll win 9 times out of 10 on anyone else's kind of wish list. That's what a lot of people should be going for, I think. Yeah.
100%. 100%. I love that. I mean, simple blueprint for success. And I guess I think about that blueprint in the way you lay it out, and one, I of course did not know that about the cancer. I mean, thank God you're here, right? You're healthy, you're back and better.
To be honest, man, I know people who had COVID worse than I had cancer. Like, it was a day operation to get rid of, like, to have the tumor removed and stuff. So I was like, this is insane. Like healthcare is magic as far as I'm concerned. But yeah, long term, thank you very much that the health things, we're still
Yeah,
kind of feeling them. So I appreciate that. But yeah.
no, definitely, definitely. It kind of got me thinking, and maybe start thinking about, you know, I feel like I said, there's so much overlap between health and not just physical health. Obviously,
Yeah.
like, I'm big on physical health, but even like mental, financial, I consider that something to be healthy or not
Yeah.
healthy.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah.
I guess, how would you say that impacts, if there's two different businesses, right? Like, let's say your business and its success and another business, do you feel like that makes a difference, right? Your, I guess, focus on those phases of health, mental, physical, emotional, versus another business that doesn't. Do you feel like that impacts success at all?
That's a good question. I mean, success, I think, is kind of knowing what you want. The rapper NF, like, he talks about, like, success is following your heart and sticking to it, really. Like, the biggest thing I have struggled with is actually giving myself self-permission to say, I really like the ability of having a business that's hyper profitable, where I'm not massively famous. I don't go on speaking tours anymore. I don't have, like, social media. I only have YouTube. That's literally it. I don't have anything else. And I'm fine with that. Like, it's okay to, that's what you want. It's okay to want that. And I think a lot of the time we're told, no, you want to think big. You want to 10x it. It needs to be 7 figures. It needs to be 8 figures, whatever. And to be comfortable and to say to yourself, actually, that's not what I want. The fact that I can go to the beach at literally any time, admittedly in England in the winter, but still, it's, a beach, hang out with the dog as much as I want, cook whatever I want, grow my own vegetables, and maybe work, a few hours a week. That, to me, was the goal. And to have the self-permission to go for that is a big part of it. And maybe that encompasses those 3 points that you talk about, like that mental, physical, and financial health. Is I'm a big believer that people who are workaholics are avoiding other life responsibilities and maybe confronting things that are quite difficult. My wife has noticed whenever I become obsessed with work and really get into it, it's usually because I'm worried about something else. That's usually the symptom. So, because it's a sense of escapism, essentially, just to not be able to focus on something else. I will say that out of all those 3, I would probably prioritize the physical health first. I have found personally that whenever I've had mental health problems, or I've been really struggling internally, lifting weights. Like, I watched a thing about, like, how men in their 40s should start lifting more weights, and I was like, hallelujah, 100%, I'm all on board. Like, it's been it's been game changer for my mum. She's 68 now, and she was always like, yeah, I don't know. And now she loves it. She, like, lifts weights twice a week. I'm like, you should
Come
be
on.
lifting heavy. Exactly right. I'm like, you should be lifting heavy weights, and so that, I find, has a quicker impact on your mental health more than the kind of mantras and ways you can learn things. Personally, that's what I found. And then that impacts the business. And all of a sudden I was like, we don't need to be Instagram famous and famous everywhere. And I don't necessarily need to have, like, a big sales team and lots of staff and speaking tours all over the world. Weirdly, because it actually came from those 2 pieces first. So the physical health is prioritized over anything and everything. That makes mental health a lot easier, because you are going to have to, like we said at the start, like, you're going to be proven wrong for like 5, 6, 7 years. That's exhausting. You have to do the same thing day in, day out for a long time. That's exhausting. But the ability to do that, I do feel, actually comes from, frankly, hitting the gym, running, gymnastics, doing whatever it does to strain and stress the muscles a little bit, and then everything else follows from there. I can usually tell if someone's really struggling with their business if I ask them, like, what does 8 a.m. to 9 a.m. look like for you? Or what does 6 a.m. to 9 a.m. look like for you? And that's usually a pretty good indicator of, I'm like, well, I can probably tell you that writing some more Instagram posts probably isn't going to fix your business, if I'm being honest. I think there's some other areas we can work on. Does that sound fair? Is that unfair? Is that a bit too harsh, maybe?
No, no, I 100% agree, right? Now, actually, funny enough, I made a post about that a few days ago about like people underestimate what they can do physically and overestimate what they can do mentally. And
That's
it's
so good. I
it's
love that. That's genius. Yeah.
what you're saying, right? And it's just, I think principles are true, and truth shows up in multiple ways, right? Like what you're saying is exactly what I'm saying, just with this different ways to say it. And that's how I know that's truth, right? And yeah, it may offend some people, but the truth is meant to be offensive, right? It's meant to agitate you, to cause you to want to change. And to your point, like movement does so much for your mental health. It does so much, obviously, for your body, right? I mean, like when you feel better and you're stronger, you build muscle, your energy's better, your mood's better, your focus is better, and it allows you to do those things, like you said, that are going to actually move the needle forward. So I think it makes such a huge difference.
There's also an element like, so a lot of the stuff that we've been trying to work on recently, like my wife and I, is when we're stressed, it's usually because we haven't done exercise. It's not the environment. All of a sudden, we both started noticing that. I mean, and she's like a runner. She does like ultra marathons and shit. Like she's like on another level. But the more I have started, I've been doing it, I don't know, 10 years now, is if I'm exhausted in the morning from a really tough workout, all of a sudden the emails I get and the stuff, I'm like, I don't care. I'm too tired to care, if I'm being honest. So like that sort of Zen focus is not me like centering myself. It's just, I'm just too tired to be stressed about this. So therefore it can't be prioritized. So I'm like, let's work on something that we know is going to work. And let's not worry about where we are competitively, whether we're on leaderboards or what's going well and wrong. And because stuff is going to go wrong, it's always going to happen. It's never a straight line, but bizarrely, a better way to deal with it, I found, is I'm just too tired to be that stressed about it. So don't worry about it. Like it'll figure itself out. I think they're finding that more and more. Like the reason people are stressed is not, I mean, we do have a very stressful working environment, and the ability to know to take time off and rest is huge. But I think that people are stressed because their body physically has the energy it's trying to burn off, and it channels it through. I don't know, maybe this is harsh. I have found when people get retired and they leave work, all of a sudden the neighbor over the road who's done something slightly different from their roses, that's something they're really stressed about. I'm like, you're stressed about that because you've got nothing else going on in your life. That's how I feel about it, right? Like, I don't need to deal with this right now. And I feel the same about exercise to work. Like the stuff that comes in that's going to hit you, all of a sudden you're like, you know what? I'm good. Like we can deal with this. This is fine. And that comes from physical movement and lifting objects. Yeah.
100%.
Yeah,
100%.
man.
Wow. Been so insightful. Makes such
Funny,
a
isn't it?
difference.
Yeah.
I love it. I mean, I guess with that being said, what would you say to there's young business owners, young entrepreneurs who aren't obviously where you're at? I guess, what would you say to them, like when it comes to, okay, where should I start, right? Based off everything you're saying, should they focus more on strategy, performance? Like what are some indicators, I guess, they should be looking at?
So this is a good question. And as I've kind of got older, I've been thinking a lot about this. I will categorically, I'll go on record and say this, and I have gone on record of saying this, is if you're looking to start and you want to start a business, there are 1,001 ways of running a successful business. There's 1,001 different products. There's 1,001 people way smarter than me who have made way more money, way faster. I will say that every single one of them who has got some semblance of success, above all else, will have a really clear idea of who they want to help. What this boils down to is, do I know the type of person I want to help? And essentially, allow them to give me money to help them. That's all that matters. If I know categorically the only group of people I want to work with is ex-athletes with a YouTube channel who want to grow their audience, that's all that matters. Making sure I become obsessed with the type of person. If I can figure that out, and do nothing but work out who is it that deserves my time and attention and focus. Who would I want to build a community of? Who would I want to have a conversation with 10 times a day? Who would I want to answer 100 questions by? If you can figure out that, everything from your email strategy to your finance strategy to your product strategy to your admin strategy, all of that will figure itself out. It basically boils down to, and this is something I teach my marketing clients, is the marketing campaign that you put out into the world to get customers is basically responsible for maybe 1% of your results. Deciding who your client is responsible for 99% of the success.
Wow.
The world's best written copy, you could pay someone $100,000 to write your landing page and your emails and your ads and your social posts, directed to the wrong person, will not do anything. A really badly optimized GIF with really low pixel density and a typo in a Facebook post directed to the right person could make you 6 figures. So figuring out who it is that you want to work with. Every single time I have a conversation with a business that's stuck, the first question I ask is, well, who do you want to work with? Because they all come to me and they say, I want more clients. And I go, great, I can find you more clients. I can find you more clients now. Who do you want to work with? And they go, I guess like business owners would be great. I'm like, okay, so 98% of global GDP. So let's narrow that down just a little bit. When you begin to understand, like, actually who I want to work with is people who set up lighting inside podcast studios. That's all they do. They just set up lighting within podcast studios. Great. I can help you find that. I can help you find 1,000 of them. Imagine going to like the African savannah and saying, I want to see some animals. And they go, well, okay, where? What animals? And you go, I don't really know, whatever. Now, that's a bad example, because when you go to like apparently a safari now, it's like you can't move for like elephants and lions and stuff. But maybe fishing like would be a good one. Like if people say, I want to go fishing, you go, okay, what type of fish do you want to catch? Like there is a world of difference between how I'm going to hunt like marlin compared to like river trout, like 2 completely different fish. Unless you've got an idea of the type of thing you want to go after, nothing else matters. So I personally would spend way more time figuring out who it is I want to work with than, and I'll say this as a marketer who builds marketing funnels, the marketing and the marketing funnels and the content is almost irrelevant if you don't have a really clear idea of the community of people you want to work with. Is that like succinct enough? Or is that too specific, too pragmatic?
No, that is good. I mean, talk about saving someone years of wasted time, right? I mean, you get that together, and that is, wow. I mean, just that like analogy really puts it in perspective. Like that is where most of your success, money, whatever you want to call it, is going to come from, is knowing who you're serving, more so than focusing on all the doohickeys and systems and products you have. If you don't know who you're serving, none of that stuff's going to land anyway. I mean, I think that is so powerful. And a lot of overlap with even like with what I do, right? I mean, it's one thing to say, I just want to like lose weight, right? People say that all the time, but it's like, do you really want to lose weight, or do you just want to fit into your, those jeans you used to wear? And that's a very different goal, right? You can fit into those jeans without necessarily dropping 30 pounds. So I see it's very similar with like, let's define what we actually want. Let's define what we're going for so we can create a specific plan of action for that.
I mean, like my understanding is it's true of athletes in general. Was there a time that you found that you were like, okay, I have to pick football? Presumably you play other sports.
100%.
Right. So I think there's this myth, and I don't know, I'd be interested to hear your perspective on this, where like, oh, he plays football, he must have been just great at football and that's his talent, or he plays golf. And I'm like, I happen to know that Roger Federer is a phenomenal golfer, like world-class golfer. There was a point where, as an athlete, as someone who's like naturally wants to work on their body, goes, well, I have to go after this particular sport because I physically cannot train diving, golf, baseball, and football at the same time.
So
you have to make the decision, right? Because that changes the complete trajectory of what you're going to be doing over the next 5 or 6 years. Would that be fair to say?
100%.
Right.
So true. So true.
Yeah. And so you have to like, so I say this to like, again, my clients, I'm like, I don't doubt that every human being in the world would benefit of having a 15-minute conversation with you. You're not Google, we don't, unless you have got that kind of money. Maybe you have, I don't know, right? I'm going to assume you don't have that kind of money. So why don't we narrow it down to the point where you would be able to pick? Because what ends up happening is when you decide, okay, I only want to work with businesses that release 3D printing filament, all right? Completely plucked out of the air. That's all I want to work with. All of a sudden you go, okay, well, what other physical like communities and forums and Facebook groups and LinkedIn groups have those people in it? Let's go hang out in there for a bit. What books do those guys read? What YouTube channels do they watch? What podcasts do they listen to? What audiobooks are they listening to? What events are they going to? There's this thing we used to do when we were kind of running this coaching program called a magic trick, where we can literally get people books, clients, sales, and calls within 45 minutes. Sometimes we do it on the call, on the onboarding call with them, because I would simply, once we have decided, and we would spend days, maybe a couple of weeks, trying to figure out, well, who do you want to help? Who's the person you want? What is the fish that you want to fish? When we figure that out, the copy writes itself. The positioning writes itself. The problem writes itself. The offer writes itself. The pricing writes itself. All of that writes itself because I'm so specific about the type of business that I want to, or the type of person I want to help. And all of a sudden, you don't need a freelance marketer or a marketing agency doing your copywriting or an ads agency doing your ads, because actually what really matters is your understanding of how obsessed you are with that one particular type of audience. And we could probably find you your first 5 to 10 clients for free just by knowing where to even start looking, you know?
Man, wow. That is some powerful stuff.
I hope so, because that's what I teach and how I've been building the business. So I would love if someone was like, actually, Mike, that's absolute bullshit. I can prove you wrong. I'd love to hear that, but so far this way happens to work for us. So that's what we've been doing.
No, I mean that is wow. I mean that is literally, I mean, the key. Like, man, like that's gold. That is gold,
Good,
and it's makes all the difference in just your trajectory. And I think that word of obsession, like obsessing with that person, I think, and their struggles and what they do and who they are, is so powerful. And man, I mean, I see that just so much in like health and fitness world and coaching and helping people, right? I mean, it's a very similar thing, right? I can write a cookie cutter program that says just do 10 jumping jacks and do a few squats and some push-ups and just eat celery and broccoli, right?
Yeah.
How many people is that really going to help? I mean, the personalization, the specificity to that person and their struggles and what they need is what makes it valuable, right? And I mean, it's so true with what you're saying.
Yeah, like there's this really interesting like curve, like bell curve of what happens. The technical term for this is called marketing continuity, which is very like wanky and very fucking corporate. But the idea is that like when you define a really specific type of person that you want to work with, and I can't talk to health and fitness and nutrition and weight management, but I can talk to like, making money and making sales. What we would find is people would say, okay, I want to work with people who have worked in corporate businesses. They're now on a speaking tour and they want to run a 6-figure-a-year speaking business and sell a bunch of books. They are typically over the age of 45. The first thing they think about when they wake up in the morning is, have I got any new leads? That's a pretty good start, right? As soon as I figure that out, we go, okay, well, how are we going to help them, in their case, book more speaking gigs? That's the only thing they're worried about, book more speaking gigs. How are we going to do that? What ends up happening is you go, oh, actually, this is kind of similar for like how people would book more podcast guests. And then you go, actually, it's pretty much similar for how like a consultant would get more calls in general. The actual steps for helping those people are probably pretty generalized across an entire broad range, but they want to know and at least feel like it is targeted to them. There's really, really interesting science behind like, if I see something is a video and it says, hey, are you like a 38-year-old guy who loves to surf? I'm like, oh my God, yeah, that's me. Right? But the information they give actually is super broad, is really applicable to so many people around the world, like all of humanity. But purely because I was like, oh my God, that's me, all of a sudden it feels more relevant, not because the information is actually more specific, but because purely it was targeted at me. I think a really great example of this is shaving products. Men's razors and women's razors are literally identical. They're made by the same companies in the same factories. They have a slightly different paint attached to them. But for whatever reason, we go, well, one of those you have to pay $17 for, and one of them you only pay $4 for. And they're marketed in two completely different ways. The product is identical. It's who is the customer that we are obsessed with at the end of it. Like, I wouldn't be able to tell you the difference between all the different types of wine, but there must be enough of an audience difference for some people like, oh yeah, well, $5 versus $50 versus $100. Yeah. I'm like, okay, great. Like, but that's down to the audience choice. That's not actually down to the product itself. That's how I've tried to sort of explain this to people. And what ends up happening, this thing called marketing continuum, a bit like a black hole. When you work with 5 coaches or 5 like people to help get speaking gigs, someone else will come along and go, I don't want speaking gigs, but I do want more paid podcast appearances. Can you help me? Yes, I can help you. If you continue to target a very specific niche, niches within that orbit will also approach you and say, can you help me as well? And then you can start saying yes. The key is making sure you don't broaden your marketing or broaden your message. It's keep it specific to one person, and other people in the orbit will typically go, oh, I wonder if that would work for me as well. Like if I worked with plumbers, I eventually think if I did good enough work with plumbers, electricians and roofers would say, could you help me book more leads as well? I'll be like, yeah, of course, 100%. But it's because I'm specific about the audience that I talk to. That's like 5 years worth of marketing strategy boiled down into like 15 seconds there, to be honest. But yeah, that's how I would approach it now. Yeah.
Man. Oh, it's boiled down really well. I'll tell you that. Like, wow. I mean, that's powerful.
I wish I could say it's because it's like really complex and I bought it. It's actually just because it's really simple and like it starts off really basic and I've just taken it from there really. Yeah.
Wow. No, that is amazing, man. Wow. Well, I mean, obviously just from what you're saying and what you're speaking, you've learned a wealth. I mean, just a complete plethora of things through your years and experience. And I know just from hearing you talk, there's a lot of drive behind the things you're wanting, the things you're doing that has allowed you to achieve the success that you've achieved. And where you're currently at, would you say there's any, I guess, big goal or objective you have on the horizon, in terms of where you're at and where you're wanting to go, or are you kind of there?
No, it's definitely not there. If anything, I'm trying to learn more and be more appreciative of where you're at. So there's this concept called like the pursuit of superiority. I don't know if you've come across like Adlerian psychology or individual psychology. The very base, the foundations are, as human beings, we're born helpless, and almost every single one of us, our core kind of goal is to escape helplessness. That's what we try to do. So most of us are doing things to try and escape helplessness. There becomes a point though where you have kind of reached that point where you're self-sufficient and you're engaged with a community. That's usually like a good litmus test is, am I self-sufficient? But at the same time, am I engaged with a community? Which is kind of paradoxical, but those two things balance. It's about learning that you are good enough. It's very easy to get sucked into an idea of like, well, now I have to take it to the next level. Otherwise, I'm not good enough. Otherwise, I am not worthy of love, which is a bit woo-woo, but that's often a core driver of, do I have value as a human being? What was difficult was the first time I hit 6 figures, I don't know how many years ago that was, 10 years ago, whatever, I genuinely thought that there'd be like celebrations. People would be like, you've done it. You've nailed it. You've won business. And I was like, nothing changed. Nothing really like made a difference. And as I have made more money, I've realized that yes, 100%, being able to pay your mortgage and being able to go on holiday and being able to save money and pay taxes and stuff, that is a level of stress that like once you've escaped that does make a huge difference. That makes an enormous difference. And once you get past that level, you do notice. Past that, nothing majorly happens. So we've got a couple of core goals for the business. One of them is to be able to basically pay the team a year's salary for 6 months work. That's like my next goal, is for us to basically just the whole business to only work 6 months a year. That's like what I want to do, and everyone keeps getting paid. I think that'd be kind of sick. The big goal at the moment, though, is kind of working on the idea that actually maybe I'm enough. Maybe I have got enough. Maybe I am enough. Maybe we're good. Which I know is kind of difficult to comprehend when you're maybe in that hustle and grind where you're trying to get to that next stage. And I appreciate that. But there isn't anything in terms of like a huge multi-million, dollar sale or anything like that. Not at the moment, at least. It's can I work 2 hours a week and the team gets paid and we make more money than we did last month? That to me sounds pretty good. It's hard work getting there. But that's kind of the goal. Is that fair? Is that like enough of a...
Oh yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
100%. I love I think the mentality behind the goal is where the value comes in. Like there's a strong mentality of where you're at and where you've arrived that I think makes the goal what it is. And I think seeing behind that is what, like, it's just cool to see, versus like, well, the goal is to reach this number or do this thing, but more so this is a lifestyle and this is a place I want to arrive to in my
Yeah.
thinking and what I'm doing. That I think makes that it just makes it all the difference, But I guess, like, obviously from where you're at and where you're wanting to go, I guess, what do you think you'll need to do in order to kind of get there?
Yeah, that's a good question. So my current, if you want to like talk pragmatic, like the current big goal is, I know that we have a pretty decent sales and conversion engine on the back end. I want to build YouTube. If you want to talk about something where I am miserable and I feel like a failure and constantly feeling like I'm doing the wrong thing and grinding, it's building our YouTube channel. I have never done anything as hard as try to build a YouTube audience, as I'm sure you know on your stuff. Like, it is absolutely relentless. It's this cruelest of mistresses where one video could almost add like 4 or 5 figures to your business, and then you'll get nothing on the next ones. In terms of actual practical steps of how I know we're going to get there, it's doing that more and trying to find our audience and having our audience know we're on YouTube so that I can help them. That's like a literal pragmatic thing that we're trying to get to. I don't necessarily have a subscriber goal or anything. I don't necessarily have like a views goal. But it would be nice to know that, yeah, every single one of our videos consistently, or no, here's the goal. The number of views is almost irrelevant because that kind of goes up and down. But knowing that, yeah, I understand how to package something well enough to put it out to our audience. That's like the what do you call it? The tactical goal we're working at the moment. And I think when we nail that, that's going to make everything else work a lot better, because we've got a really successful business for how small our YouTube channel is. That's because we spend a huge amount of time email marketing. We spend an enormous amount of time and energy thinking about emails and writing emails to our list and trying to have conversations with people inside our email list and segmenting it. I think in order to grow that, YouTube is probably where I'm going to want to go. But as you know, it is absolutely relentless. Like it's hard work.
Amen to that. Nah, it's
Yeah.
it is some work. It is a lot of work. But kind of like when we first started the conversation, like the mentality that you speak to and that perspective, I think for anybody who's wanting to do that, that's what they're going to need to be able to sit in that place of pain and discomfort
Yeah.
long enough to start to see what they want kind of show up. Um, so it's kind of funny how that's how it started, and this is kind of how it's kind of full circle. It's like that is what you need, and then to get that is what you need again, and it's kind of it's just awesome to see. I mean, like it is. I mean, just like you said, it is a lot more simple than people think in a lot of ways, and I think it starts with that. It starts with your mentality. It starts with things like movement, like
Yeah.
physically. That's one thing you
Yeah.
can't control. That's
Yeah.
the greatest way. I like to say, if you can, not everyone can, but if you can even start the
Yeah.
day with that, I mean, it's the greatest. That's a win, right? You start your day with a win, right? You can get up and do some form of exercise for 20, 30 minutes. That's a great way to take control of your day and not let the day happen to you, but go actually
Yeah.
attack the day.
Yeah. I mean, there's a ton of science behind that in general, but like, yesterday, like I said, I mean, I'd done a little bit of rehab and some light kind of work, but yesterday was the first proper class where I was back with my friends, and we're naturally kind of competitive with each other and we pair up and stuff. And it was the first time I'd really done that, and it was for the first time in a long time where I felt like confident again. I was like, yeah, I could do this. This is fine. It was rough. I hated it. It sucked for all 15 minutes of it, but we did it. I've crushed it. Like, there isn't a lot that could now come at me where I'd be like terrified, because I'm like, you have no idea what I was doing at like 6 a.m. Like this is fine. Like, this is nothing compared to that. So
Yeah.
and I don't think you have to push. I absolutely don't think you have to push to that extreme, but I have seen the change in my mum, who is well retired from lifting weights twice a week. She's now like, I can do this. Like, this body is mine and I can do these things. And that translates. I know a lot of people say, like, wherever your mental headspace goes, the body follows. In fact, surfing is a really interesting analogy for this. Like, the idea is, I don't know if you do surf or have surfed, but where your physical head is looking is where you go. It doesn't matter if you think, I really like to go over to the left. If you're looking right, physically looking right, that's where you're going to go. And I'm a firm believer that, like, your body will actually often tell you where your mind can go. Like, the physical space that you occupy can start saying, if I moved those 10 meters, imagine what I could do with a keyboard if I'm able to do that inside, a gym.
Wow.
So yeah, I'm all about starting out physical. Yeah, man.
That is amazing. Wow. What a word. Tell them. Woo. Oh, man. I love it, Mike. I love it. I love everything you said. It's been extremely valuable. I guess if any of our listeners wanted to reach out with any questions, that they may have from kind of our conversation, what is kind of the best place, or where can they do that?
Yeah, so if you go to youtube.com/sell your service, that's like where I am. That's the channel. And if my emails are always open, it's just Michael, Michael, @sellyourservice.co.uk. I don't have any social media. Apparently people have been connecting with me on LinkedIn. I'm not on LinkedIn, so don't do that. But yeah, if you could just send me an email or head over to the YouTube channel, that's the easiest place to go. Yeah.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, I appreciate your time, Mike. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me on, mate. It's been good. Appreciate it. Thanks for the
Heck
questions.
yes. Heck yeah.